Hello, welcome to this ESS BIZTOOLS familiarisation session for our subscribers relative to the SME Needs Analysis. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to look at the vital role that the SME Needs Analysis plays in helping you to get an understanding of what's causing your client to have some worries about running their business. What wakes them up at 3 a.m.? And the way that we have approached this is to pose a series of points for you to discuss with your client to find out whether they're the issues that worry them. Of course, you could be saying to your client beforehand what is causing you the concern, but in lots of cases, the client doesn't open up until you have been able to talk to them about the real issues that are confronting them. So we've now gone to the members' homepage of the ESS BIZTOOLS website. And I'm going through, and on this left-hand column here, which is the details of what's in the system, we're going to click on the SME Needs Analysis. And that will now bring that material up onto the screen. It gives a summary of the package content. You will notice that we have 3 individual components of the package on the SME Needs Analysis. We have BAS 017, that's the detailed SME Needs Analysis. We also have the SME Needs Analysis in an Excel spreadsheet, which is BAS 017 uppercase A. And in BAS 017B, we have a simple SME Needs Analysis, which you might prefer to use. So let's download the content, and we will go to the SME Needs Analysis first of all, and I'm going to share that documentation with So the form BAS 017 is now on the screen. This is the SME Needs Analysis. So what you would do is you could send this to your client. In fact, I've very successfully sent probably over 100 of these out over the years to clients, and indicated to the client that I'd like to have a discussion about the issues that worry them, that do wake them up at 3 a.m. in a week's time. And it's amazing what you get back written on this sheet. You'll find things written and then rubbed out or crossed out and then rewritten. You'll find items with question marks. What's this mean? Written alongside it. It helps highlight to you what your client's understanding is of the commercial reality of the business that they're operating. And that can give you an insight as to some of the other services that you should be talking to your client about. But also it's clearly highlighting what your client would like to talk to you about. So in answer to a question, is a client looking for improved business profit? Client might have written something there. Cash flow, do they understand it? Is it good enough? If their cash flow is not satisfactory, what's causing that? Could be excessive debtors. What's the debtors' days outstanding? Why is the debtors' level so high? Are they not supplying all the information to their customer? that the customer has requested, and therefore there's a delay on the payment being made. All these things can unearth issues within your client's business that you can assist. What's the business valuation? How can you help your client to improve that valuation? Do they have some concerns about minimising taxation? What can you do to help them there? What's their strategy on wealth creation? What new systems need to be created? So how's the business going overall? You may have got an inkling out of that, of course, out of the first section of questions, but you could come back to it. Are they happy with the profit and the cash flow? But if they've got some concerns, where are the concerns? Your client is the person that's running this business. They are the CEO. But they haven't got, in most cases, the benefit of an in-house financial expert. You're that person. So you need to get into your client's head to understand what's worrying them. Very much like would happen if you were a full-time chief financial officer or an accountant working for a commercial client. The CEO would be firing questions at you. That's most definitely what I found in my experience as the chief financial officer and company secretary of a listed public company. You need to understand your client, your CEO, and what's concerning them. Is it various departments and their sales, their gross profit percentages, their level of inventory, stock turnover, the productivity of the individual team? How do they compare on a benchmarking report for those individual departments? Can you give them an idea on that? Is their gross profit percentage 27% when you can look at benchmarking reports and see that the industry average is up around 40%? That's got to tell you something is going wrong in the business. They're obviously not charging enough, or there may be some theft occurring, or there could be some other reasons. They're not buying properly in the first place to get. So what are the financial goals? What can be done to improve sales? What can be done to improve margins? So I'll leave that one to you to have a good look at. And we move on to ratios. And then we move on to debtors management policies. What's the debtors age analysis? Do they know what that means? Is it being calculated at least on a monthly basis and then reviewed by the leadership team? This is very important because someone needs to be thumping the table to make sure that there's approaches made to these debtors. And in some cases, that approach might have to be made by a member of the leadership team because the customer is using their knowledge, the ability that they play golf with one of the leadership team members to think that that's going to allow them to stretch out their payment terms by another couple of weeks. And that leadership team member may have to make contact with them and say, now, listen, we're great mates around the golf course, but this is our business. Your terms of trade are payment in 30 days, not 45 days, and try to get them back into line. What about the cash flow management? Is there any matters there that have concerned your clients? Budgets and cash flow forecasts. Are they preparing them or are you preparing? And if you're preparing them, are they following them up and looking closely at the end results? What about suppliers? Are they happy with their suppliers? Is their supply chain being interrupted because of the unfortunate wars that are taking place around the world at present? And what's this meaning to their inventory levels? Does this mean that they need to hold higher levels of stock? And what's the effect of that in the cash flow position? A lot of these things create a chain event. Where's it all leading? Let's look at creditors. How are they going with creditors? What's the creditors' days outstanding? Is there some crucial creditors? And if so, should they be treated in a separate category? Because some of them may have imposed very stringent payment requirements. Otherwise, your client's blacklisted. It doesn't receive any more supplies. And if that supplier happens to be unique in the Australian situation, your client has to make sure that they can comply. So it's a high priority area to make sure that those suppliers are being paid in accordance with their payment terms. What about marketing? Now, you're not a marketing expert, I assume, but you can raise some questions just as you would if you were the CFO of a business. You would be having discussions with the CEO and the other members of the leadership team and saying to them, gee, why don't we do such and such? Should I be talking to a marketing consultant to look at things? So they clearly identified their market. What's going on the website? Is it up to date, or is it promoting events that were held 4 months ago? Do you produce newsletters for this client, or do they produce newsletters? And what do? Do they have a follow-up process? What's their social media policy? So you can talk to them about that. Now, some of these issues will identify concerns that your client has that you might say, well, as a firm of accountants, we can't help them. But as a firm of accountants, you can bring it to their attention and then suggest other competent professionals that you could refer them to get some detailed input into that area of their business. How are they going with some of the matters to do with the team? Fair Work Australia rules, modern awards, employment agreements, those types of things. And again, this might not be an area of your expertise, but once you identify there's an issue, there's a concern, you could refer your client on to another firm of advisors that give expert advice in this area. Let's look at customers. Do they have a CRM system? Do they use it? Do they get feedback from customers? Have they got a customers advisory committee that meets 4 times a year and have some discussions with them and get feedback as to what the customers think of the current campaign or what they think of the new product? You could suggest to your clients that they have a close look at competitors, and in some instances you will be asked then to prepare a competitors comparison. What's the good points? What's the bad points? What's the points that are waking up your client at 3 a.m. to think about what their competitors are doing? It's a good idea to jot it down, create a file for them. What about the business building matrix? Explain to them what could happen if they could sell to an extra 10% of customers and raise the gross profit percentage by 1.5% and improve the frequency of visits if we're talking about a shop. What would be the effect of all that on the bottom line? It can be quite dramatic in some instances. And that might give your client the new vision, the model to implement that type of strategy. How do we go about getting those extra clients? It all looks good on a spreadsheet, but the real hassle then is implementing it. What about corporate governance? Is your client's business growing? Is he or she thinking about inviting some other people to become directors or board of advice members? If so, what's the process? Does your client need some training, first of all, on corporate governance? Because the last thing you'd want to do is encourage your client to invite 2 prominent business people onto their board if you understand that your client does not have a good knowledge of corporate governance issues. You would be well advised to talk to them about that first and say, now, we'll run you a series on corporate governance so that you understand the way professional board of directors operate, so that you are prepared for all this before you invite these 2 high-level business people that you know, but you don't want to have your client embarrassed, do you? Helps you to prepare that for them. And I've also got there the advisory board. Advisory boards are becoming far more popular in Australia, especially with the number of one-person company board of directors we now have, because the Corporations Act enables us to operate a lot of private companies with only one director. But bear in mind, if your client is looking to raise capital utilising crowdsourced funding, equity raising, or early stage innovation company, there will be pressure from external investors to say that they want to have a say on who the directors of the company are that are implementing policies that hopefully are going to enable those investors to be able to exit the business at some stage in the future. Government grants is another very important area that you might like to look at, because grants are very important for businesses to assist them to obtain funding, to implement strategies, and to achieve their targets. The Personal Property Securities Register is very important for your client to have an understanding of how it works. And depending on their industry, it could be a major saviour for them in some future event. If in the unfortunate event there's a insolvency occurrence in one of their key debtors. So this is the purpose of the SME Needs Analysis, to give you some prompts of questions that you might like to ask your client. What about research and development? Are they contemplating undertaking research and development? And if so, you can indicate to them that you can give them advice in this area, that they don't have to go off and talk to another bigger firm, a top 4 firm, that or external people that are offering R&D advice, that you can give it to them. They exporting? If so, are they aware of the Export Market Development Grant, which incidentally is currently open for applications? And if you've got clients who are exporting or supplying services in Australia to overseas residents, and they're marketing those services, therefore incurring expenditure, they are the group that have been targeted, as long as their turnover is under $20 million per annum, by Austrade for the Export Market Development Grant. But there's a limited amount of money, therefore you need to make sure your client completes the application as soon as possible. Now, the latest round of applications, which is for the next 2 years, opened on the 12th of November. So you would need to make sure you encourage your client to complete their application, and you might be able to assist them on that activity. Is management of costs a concern to your clients? What about the risks? And we discussed that question. Raising capital. In the current difficult economic situations which we have in Australia and in other parts of the world, obviously, cash flow is very important for your client's business. And one of the questions that can come up is, well, should we be getting funding from somewhere else? Well, your client could borrow money, but they will normally need to have spare assets that they can offer as security to the lender. But one of the opportunities which we now have, which wasn't available 7 or 8 years ago, is the ability to raise capital direct from the public. We did have one opportunity 7 or 8 years ago, and that was Section 708 of the Corporations Act. That enables a company to raise up to a maximum of $2 million in a 12-month period from a maximum of 20 investors. But now we have crowdsourced funding equity raising, where the 50 shareholder limit for a private company doesn't come into play at all. And the company could raise up to $5 million in a 12-month period. And if it desires, they could go back to the crowdsourced funding equity raising process again the following year. and me. So these opportunities are available. We also have early stage innovation companies for small technology inspired innovative companies that are wanting to do things. It's a good idea to talk to your clients about this, because a lot of them may think that you don't give advice in this area, and you have all the material you need to be able to give advice on crowdsourced funding, equity raising, and early stage innovation company within the subscription to ESS BIZTOOLS. Business plans are vital for business. Has your client got one? Is it up to date? Is it being used every month as they continually update the list of work that was to be done? The targets to ensure that the document is a living document that's being used to help the business in its day-to-day activities. So hopefully that's given you a detailed overview of some of the matters. I'm just flicking through here now so you can see the rest of them. That you could discuss with your client and sit down and talk to them. In my experience, most users of the SME Needs Analysis come away with extra work from your client because you've used this discussion with your client as a promotion of the type of services that you could offer. Remember, many of your clients think that accountants in public practice are only there offering taxation services. We have talked about a whole range of issues in that summary that I've given you today, and barely touched on taxation as a direct subject. So there's a lot of other activities that you can deliver to assist your client to overcome the isolation, the concerns, the worries that most people operating small, medium enterprises in Australia have today. If you have any questions on any of the matters that I've raised with you, please do not hesitate to send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Thank you for your support of ESS BizTools. I look forward to being able to make another training presentation to you in the near future. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye. And I look forward to talking to you again in the near future. Goodbye.